Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Meg, welcome, and if you're returning, then welcome back. Okay, so today's video is kind of long awaited. About 4 or 5 months ago, I filmed a story time about my first love, and I did mention that there was going to be quite a few parts to the story because it's a long story. And I kind of just filmed part 1 and then just never filmed part 2. So yeah, I left you all on a cliffhanger for like 5 months, so sorry about that. But today I'm back and I'm filming part 2 for you all. A little side note, if you haven't seen part 1 yet, I would recommend watching that first, otherwise this story won't make an awful lot of sense. So I will link part 1 down below, but I am going to do a quick summary of part 1 just for the people that have watched it, because it was literally like 5 months ago. It's like when a new series comes out and you have to go back and watch the one before it because you've forgotten what happened in it. This storytime series, should we say, is about my first love, my first boyfriend, you know, all that jazz. And part 1, I basically told you about the beginning of our relationship. So the first like 4 to 6 months, we got together, we fell in love, lost my virginity to him, and then one day before Valentine's Day, he broke up with me. We got back together on Valentine's Day, but he then broke up with me again a few days later. There was also another girl involved called Alice. She was this girl that he was like in a friendship group with that always made it quite obvious that she fancied him and would always flirt with him when I wasn't around. And basically what I left the story on was he had started going out with Alice, and he'd messaged me and told me that he wasn't happy about something, but I didn't know what it was at this point, and that's where I left the story last time. So if you guys want to hear part 2 to my first love, then please keep watching. Okay, so Harry's messaged me on MSN. He's asked how I am. I've said I'm fine. I wasn't. I was absolutely heartbroken, but I was lying. And he said, you know, I'm not good. And I said, what's wrong? And he basically said, you know, I've asked Alice out now, but it doesn't feel right. It's not the same. And I'm like, of course it doesn't feel right, honey, because she's not me. You're like, there's only one of me, hello. No, I didn't do that, but I kind of just asked like what felt different about it. Basically said to me, I want to see you, like, can I meet you? So I meet up with him, and he basically says to me like, I don't want to be with her, I want to be with you. And I'm like, do you want to make up your mind? Like, last week you wanted to be with me, then you wanted to be with her, now you want to be with me again. And obviously my guard is up a little bit because he has already got back with me once and broken up with me again. So I'm a little bit like, is he just going to do the same thing again and I'm going to look like an idiot again? But I don't know what it was. There was something different about this time because of everything he was risking. Like, obviously everyone knew, it was common knowledge in school that he was now with Alice, even though it had only been one day. I think because of the lead up to it, like the fact that everyone knew he was gonna ask her out and all that. It was a bit of a bold move for him to suddenly be wanting to get back with his ex-girlfriend. And we talked for a while and we ended up kissing. And I know that I should practice what I preach. I don't agree with cheating, but at that point, you know, she'd already betrayed me, sort of thing. Like, I didn't feel like I had any loyalties to her. He was my boyfriend first. I was just taking back what was rightfully mine. I refused to take it any further until he'd broken up with her. I don't feel guilty for what I did because she did the same thing to me. So, and it's not, I know that it's not an eye for an eye, you don't fight fire with fire, but I was a kid, you know. Will forgive me, won't we? The next day I come into school and I think everyone was expecting me to be really down because obviously Harry was now with Alice, but obviously I knew that he didn't want to be with her and he wanted to be back with me, so it was kind of difficult to hide my smugness. I was very smug, I was very like, haha, in your face sort of thing, and I was happy, like, because I knew that we were getting back together. He just needed to break up with her. And it was really awkward because me and Alice were in the same English class and we had English that day, and I could see her watching me and I could see that she was kind of sat there like feeling the same way as I was. Like, she felt smug. You could tell that she was like, haha, I've got him now. But I was like kind of batting it back to her like, yeah, but you haven't, because he wants to be back with me. So yeah, it was very much like a battle of smugness between us. I hadn't told anybody. Like, I didn't tell any of my friends. I wanted him to break up with her first. I mean, I didn't really care if people found out, but he didn't want anyone to find out until he'd broken up with her, so I was keeping it a secret. We had a mutual friend, not Claire, not the girl I mentioned in my previous video. This girl we'll call Georgia. So she was my friend, but she was also his friend, and I think they had their English class together. So when I was in my English class with Alice, Georgia was in her English class with Harry, and we obviously met up on our break, and Georgia said to me, like, do you have anything to tell me? And I was kind of like, no, like, I called her bluff. I didn't know whether she was just testing me, and she was like, Harry told me. And I was like, oh, okay, then yes, I do have something to tell you. So we were just spying on them, basically. I was trying to see if he was talking to her, but he wasn't. I could see her like cuddling him, but obviously I knew that he didn't want to be cuddling her. So I was just very smug that day. It was a very smug day at school. Anyway, I can't remember the exact like order of events that this happened in, but I think what happened is while we were kind of like hanging around spying on them, Laura, which was Harry's female best friend, who I mentioned in my previous video, so she was Harry's female best friend, but she was also best friends with Alice. So she comes walking down the corridor, and she can quite clearly see that we're up to something. And I mean, Laura didn't have any hard feelings towards me. Like, we still got on, even though she wasn't really ever my friend. She was always his friend, but like, she was a nice person. She wasn't going to be like a bitch to me because of what had gone on. So Laura's like, what's going on? And I mean, I actually was willing to keep it secret. I wasn't going to say anything, but my friend Georgia, who I think just kind of wanted it out in the open, was like, Harry's not being honest with Alice. He kissed Meg last night. He wants to get back with Meg. It was kind of like taken aback by it. I don't think she was expecting it. She didn't really blame me. She was more angry at him because he was the one that was messing both of us around and playing us off against each other. Yeah, I think she wasn't angry at me, but she did say, I'm gonna have to tell her. And I was like, that's fair enough, because she's her best friend at the end of the day. I would tell my best friend. I wouldn't wait for her boyfriend to tell her. I would just tell her myself. I just didn't really care at this point, because I was like, Harry made out that the minute he saw Alice, he was going to break up with her, and he was still hugging her at lunchtime, you know? So I kind of just said, yeah, whatever, tell her, because I'm not waiting around for Harry to do it. He obviously doesn't have the balls to do it. I didn't tell her straight away, so lunchtime carried on with them being together. We had our afternoon lesson, and then it was time to go home. And Harry comes up to my locker as I'm getting ready to leave, and he's like, Laura's told Alice about what happened last night. He wasn't angry, like I think he was just relieved that Alice knew now and he didn't have to be with her anymore. So wimpy of him to not do it himself, but whatever. So anyway, me and Harry left. We walked home together, and while we were walking home, Alice is ringing him. She's texting him saying, I don't care about like what happened with Meg. I love you. I want to be with you. Sorry, she's been with this boy for 24 hours and she's telling him she loves him. I know I fell in love with him quickly, but I did not say I love you that fast. Like, that's just ridiculous. Anyway, Harry walked me home, and I kind of said to him, like, I don't think we should get back together straight away. I think we should give it a little while, and he agreed. So he left, and then the next morning he comes over to walk me to school, and he's like, let's just get back together now. And I was like, okay. It was hilarious, because when we walked into school, obviously everyone that like wasn't in the inside circle sort of thing, that didn't know what had gone on the day before, was really confused, because he was now holding my hand, and for all they knew, we'd broken up and he was now with Alice. And honestly, it was so odd. Literally, I'm not even exaggerating, everyone turned and looked at us. It was like we were celebrities, and people did think that I was a mug, and people used to say it to me as well, but I didn't listen to it because I was naive back then, and I just thought, you know, he loves me, we had a blip, but he realised how he feels about me, and we're all good, sort of thing. So we were back together, and do you know what? I did not get off lightly with that at all, considering I didn't do an awful lot wrong. Her friends used to shout stuff at me in the corridor, and one of her friends actually got another friend that they had in sixth form to get my number and start messaging me abuse. Like, he got off scot-free. He got nothing. I was the one getting all the abuse for what had happened, when I wasn't the one that was in a relationship. I didn't betray anybody. Alice basically had a good friend who we'll call Charlotte. And this Charlotte girl was also in our English class, and she didn't like me. She'd never liked me. I don't know why, because before all this had happened, I'd never done anything to make her not like me. I know that she was just sticking up for her friend, but she did take it too far. She was the one that had the friend in sixth form. I don't know how they got my number, but they got my number, and this sixth former was texting me like abuse, like really horrible things. And I didn't know who it was that was texting me, obviously. It was during a lesson that I was getting the text messages. So as soon as we finished the lesson and I was on break, I went up to my friends and I was like, I'm getting messages off this random number. I don't know who it is. And back then, I mean, I say back then, I'm the same now. I could find out anything. I'm a girl, we're detectives, sorry, okay? And my friends, being like the detectives that we are, managed to find out that Charlotte had gotten her friend in sixth form to message me all this abuse. And by this point, I'd just had enough. I'd been getting abuse off of Alice's friends for weeks now. Harry wasn't getting anything. Harry, like, everyone was just acting like Harry was some saint. And I'd just had enough. And I remember I just marched up to Alice and I was like, why is Charlotte doing this? Like, can you not fight your own battles? If you hate me so much, you tell me, like, what you think of me now. She didn't say anything. She couldn't even really look at me. So after I dealt with Alice, I went and found Charlotte and I was like, you're out of order. I don't deserve this. And you know what? She actually ended up apologising to me and we ended up being friends after that. Well, not friends, but like she agreed that she'd been out of order and she kind of said, like, I don't blame you for what you did. I would have done the same, because at the time she was in like a relationship with someone who she loved. They had a similar relationship to me and Harry. They were very much like in love with each other. And I said to her, you know, how would you feel if it was your boyfriend? Would you have not done the same thing? And she was like, yeah, I would have. So I think once she saw things from my point of view, they kind of left me alone after that. It was just ridiculous anyway that I was getting abuse for it. Like, not like I was some random girl that he cheated on her with. I would understand that. But I was his ex-girlfriend. She'd done it to me first. Why are you not giving him the shit for it? He was the one that did it, not me. I'm definitely not of the opinion that girls aren't to blame when men cheat, because girls are just as much to blame as the guy if they know that the guy's got a girlfriend, obviously. If they don't know, then they're not to blame at all. And I always say it's more the guy's fault than it is the girls, but the girls are not blameless. Like, I hate those people that are like, you can't blame the girl, she has no loyalties to anyone. Well, yeah, you can, because she clearly has no morals. She clearly has no respect for other girls. Like, I do think the girls are just as much to blame as the guy sometimes, but, you know, in different circumstances, like it being their ex-girlfriend, I think it can be forgiven a little bit, especially since she was just as bad. Anyway, after that, I kind of stopped getting abuse from my friends, but, you know, there was never a bloody quiet day in mine and Harry's relationship. There was always something. And I can't remember how I found this out, but basically a few months after we got back together, I found out that, well, I say I found out, someone told me, and I can't remember who it was, I can't remember who told me or how they knew about it or whatever, but somehow it got back to me that Harry had kissed Alice at that sleepover, which obviously is completely obvious. Like, it's obvious looking back that he had got with her, but I didn't think that at the time, and he told me it wasn't true and I believed him. I was an idiot for that, because that was the first time that I ever got a hint that he had cheated on me in our relationship, but I dismissed it. I ignored it because he told me it wasn't true. I'm now going to skip ahead to June 2010, this would have been. I don't know what it was, but we were just having issues, me and Harry. We were just arguing constantly over stupid things and we just weren't getting along, but I obviously still wanted to be with him. I still wanted to make things work. But I don't think he did. I think he was kind of giving up on us already. So back then, a lot of beach parties used to happen. I live in Dorset, or I used to live in Dorset. We're surrounded by beaches, so we would always have like illegal beach parties where we would all turn up, we would drink, and we would always have to hide from the police because obviously we were literally teenagers drinking on the beach, so they would always come and like move us on, but we always used to try our luck anyway. I went separately. I went with my friends, he went with his friends, and when we saw each other, we argued about something. I can't even remember what it was. It was probably something so insignificant, but we argued and he stormed off, and then I was basically telling my friends about what happened, and I think I said, you know, he's being a twat or he's being a knob or something like that, and whatever I said, one of his friends was nearby and they overheard me say it, so they went back and told him. And he comes marching up to me on the beach and has a go at me, like literally shouts at me in front of my friends because I'd said he's being a twat, which was the truth. It was so embarrassing because all of my friends were behind me and they were watching. And I'm kind of the sort of person who would much rather discuss something privately. I don't really want like everyone around us knowing what's going on in our relationship, you know. I was kind of trying to keep my voice down, trying to like diffuse the situation, and he was just going at me. Anyway, he stormed off. I mean, I was upset, but I was a little bit like, I'm just gonna have a good night with my friends. And I was sat with my friends, and I think a couple of guys came over who I didn't know, but one of my friends knew them, and they were talking to us, and I think Harry got a little bit jealous, so he then started talking to girls to try and annoy me. It was just a huge mess. We were both just doing tit for tat, to be honest. But the thing is, I wasn't even like, the boys that I was talking to, I was just talking to them normally. I wasn't flirting with them or anything, and I wasn't even doing it to annoy Harry. Like, I didn't go seeking men to talk to. They came over to us. They knew one of my friends, so they were just chatting to us normally. Harry obviously thought that I was doing it to annoy him, so he did it back to me. But obviously he went one step further. He didn't do anything with anyone, but he was actually flirting with girls. He wasn't just, you know, talking to them normally like I was. I think we had a few more arguments, and eventually obviously we went home, and I remember Beth, who is my best friend that I talk about in my Toxic Best Friend story time. If you haven't seen those, I will link those down below as well. But she was staying at mine, so she stayed over. And then the next day I was like, I just need to do something to keep my mind off of this, because our relationship was just in tatters. It really was. I wanted to fix it, but he didn't really want to. So I was like, I'm just going to do something to take my mind off of it. But bearing in mind, at this point, we were still in a relationship. Like, we hadn't broken up. I was not single, he was not single. And I remember I went to like a fun fair with, I think it was Claire actually, the friend that I mentioned in part 1, that fancied Harry but always pretended she didn't. And I believe that while I was at this fair, he had gone to a house party with his friends. We kind of just did our own thing again, like with our friends. And then I went home, and I mean, I was sad. I remember coming home with like chips from the chip shop, and I was upset, and I just really wanted to talk to him, but he was at this house party, so I just left him to it. Went to sleep. Next day, woke up. Harry messages me, or maybe I messaged him, I can't really remember, but either way, we agreed that we needed to talk because things were just not good at all, and he said he would come over. So he comes over, and I mean, I don't know what I thought was going to happen. I don't know whether I thought we were going to break up or whether I thought we were going to sort things out, but from the way he was acting, I was pretty sure that we weren't going to survive this one. So we were talking, and I remember this clear as day, and it was literally 10 years ago. In fact, it was nearly 11 years ago now. We were sat on my sofa in the lounge, and whilst I'm talking to him, he gets a phone call from a number that he doesn't have saved in his phone. But he answered the phone while we're talking, and all I heard on the other line was, "Hi, it's me." It's another girl, obviously, not a voice that I recognise. And he, like, you could tell in his face straight away, he was like, I'll have to call you back. Megan, why did you not know? I mean, obviously I was like, who the fuck's that? Who is that girl that's ringing you? But why could I not, like, put 2 and 2 together at this point? He was clearly, he'd cheated on me the night before at this house party, but I just didn't click. It didn't click. I don't know what was wrong with me, but I asked who it was. I can't remember what excuse he gave, but he played it off. Imagine, like, you're sat trying to sort your relationship out and another girl rings your boyfriend. What are you supposed to think? Especially when they've been at a house party the night before. Anyway, he ended up breaking up with me, and that breakup was actually worse than the first one, because this time we both really thought it was it. Like, I mean, obviously I thought it was it the other 2 times, but I don't know what it was about this one. I think it was because he was actually upset. Like, the first time he broke up with me, he didn't really care, whereas this time he was as upset as I was. Well, not quite as upset as I was, but we were both crying, and it was a situation where neither of us were getting on anymore. Like, we just didn't like each other anymore. I did still love him, and I was heartbroken, and this was kind of the start of a very bad time in my life. We were actually just about to start our work experience. So I was going to a hair salon to work for 2 weeks, and I actually was going there with someone that I went to school with. We weren't like friends. Well, we were friends, but we didn't like hang out with each other ever, but we knew each other, so it was nice to be like with her, because obviously it was a completely new environment for me, and I was heartbroken as well. And I don't know what it was about this particular breakup, but I just dealt with it horrifically, and I stopped eating. Like, I was barely eating a thing. I don't know how I was even like doing a full day's work, because obviously I wasn't just at school. I was doing 9 till 5 at a hair salon, and that was tiring for a 15-year-old girl, and I wasn't eating anything. I think I was like eating my dinner when I got home, because I didn't want my mum to know that I wasn't eating, but I wouldn't eat very much dinner. Like, I couldn't even stomach very much because I just felt sick constantly because I was so upset. He was just making things so much worse because I still had him on Facebook and I saw that he'd become friends with this girl. We'll call her Sophie. And this Sophie girl was the girl that had called him when we were sat on my sofa. I think he told me that. I don't know how else I would know that, but I think he might have told me. And he started talking to her, and he was like, not just talking to her, he was talking to a lot of girls, but then he would get angry if I got a friend request from a guy, because obviously I think on Facebook, I don't know if you still can, but back then you could see if someone had become friends with somebody else. And remember the guys that I told you about that were on the beach that were talking to us? One of them had added me on Facebook, and Harry just absolutely hit the roof. He was not happy about it at all. One thing I will say about Harry is he was always not very good at dealing with me moving on, even though he used to move on all the time. Every time we broke up, there was always someone else there for him, but I never did. I never moved on with anybody. I never even kissed anybody when I was single. And this guy that added me, you know, I accepted him because I met him, and you know, I wasn't doing it because I wanted to move on with someone, but he saw it that way because that's how his mind worked. So he would always get really angry with me whenever guys would give me attention when I was single, when he's the one that had broken up with me. But yet he'd be there talking to like 3 different girls and me. He'd still be talking to me. Yeah, I forgot to mention that part. We were still like sort of talking to each other as friends, like on MSN and stuff. So I'm not doing very good at all. I'm not really eating, and it's been like my first week of work experience at this point. So my best friend Robin, who I'm still best friends with to this day, me and her had like a mutual friend who we'll call her Lexi. And Lexi was kind of well known for getting with people. Like I don't want to say it in like a horrible way, but she was well known for like getting with guys that her friends had been with, for example. Like she wasn't very trustworthy. She was more Robin's friend than she was mine. But the worst thing about it was when me and Harry broke up this most recent time, she actually messaged me and was like, "Are you okay? Robin told me." And we actually had a full-on conversation about him and like how upset I was, and she was like, "I'm here for you if you ever want to talk." Anyway, one night after I finished work, I see that Lexi's written something on Harry's Facebook wall, but it's in like Arabic or something, or Latin. It's in like a language that I can't understand, and why I didn't think to just copy and paste it into Google Translate to see what it said, I don't know. But I was a bit like, they don't even know each other, so why is she writing on his wall? And I messaged Harry and I asked him, "Why is Lexi writing on your wall? Do you even know each other?" I can't even remember what excuse he gave, but whatever it was, I wasn't convinced by it. Like I was not quite like, this isn't, you're not telling the truth here. I think the following night he writes a Facebook status saying really excited for tonight, and obviously I'm like, what's he excited for? Because like I did think he's written that just to get at me. Why would you write that if you don't want your girlfriend to know what or your ex-girlfriend, sorry, to know what you're up to? I messaged his friend and his sister because I was quite close with his sister when we were together, and I was like, I mean, I don't want to be that crazy ex-girlfriend, but I kind of was, because he was driving me insane. Like the things he was doing, I just couldn't cope with it. I didn't understand how he could be so hurtful to me when I was still not moving on and I was still in love with him. So I messaged his friends. I was like, "Where's Harry going tonight? Why is he so excited?" And they were like, "Oh, he's coming out with us. We're going to have like a boys' night." And then I messaged his sister and I was like, what's Harry doing? And she said the same thing. I mean, it is his sister and his friends, so they could still lie to me, but I didn't think that they would go to the trouble of lying to me, like all of them, you know, all coming up with the same story. I think I just kind of believed it, and I thought maybe he's not even that excited for it and he's just written that because he wants a reaction out of me. I don't know. But anyway, that was that. And then that weekend, it was the weekend. So in the town where I live, every June there is something called Folk Festival. It's like a festival in Wimborne. It's really fun. It's like a Friday night, Saturday, Sunday thing. And basically there's like street dancers and stalls. And on the same weekend of the Folk Festival is the carnival in the village that I actually lived in. My mum was basically having like a barbecue at ours after the carnival. So we were all going to watch the carnival together, and then we were coming back here for a barbecue and drinks. I obviously was still 15, so I mean my mum let me drink, but I wasn't legally allowed to drink, so she didn't let me drink much, but she would let me have 1 or 2 WKDs or whatever. I was very antisocial at this barbecue. I didn't really want to sit with everybody. I was kind of just up in my room because I don't know what it was. I think I could just tell that something wasn't right. I couldn't shake this feeling that something was wrong. Like there was more to what was going on than I thought. I still don't know to this day why he didn't change his password, but basically when we were together, we knew each other's Facebook password. Not really because we used to check up on each other, but more because like he used to go on his Facebook on my laptop and I used to go on mine on his, and we just knew each other's passwords. It wasn't like a thing where we told each other. I think it was just like I knew his passwords for everything because he had the same password for everything. But all this time I kind of just assumed he would have changed it because he knows that I know it. But something inside me was like, I'm just going to try. I'm going to try and get into his Facebook. I'm going to see if that's still his password. And lo and behold, it was still his password, which baffles me to this day. But I'm glad it was, because I never would have seen what I saw if that hadn't still been his password. I saw something that just absolutely broke me, but at the same time, I finally hated him. Like, this was probably the first time that we'd ever broken up and I'd actually been like, fuck you, don't talk to me. I'm not going to tell you what it is. I'm going to leave it on a cliffhanger. To be honest, from what I've said in this story, you can probably guess. Like, if you go back and look at some of the clues I've dropped, you'll probably know what it is that I saw, but I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to tell you in part 3. So yeah, there'll be a part 3 to this. There will probably be a part 4 as well. It depends how long I ramble on for, but I promise that I won't leave it as long this time. I will try and do it within like a month of this one. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. My story times are the most viewed videos on my channel, so I do plan to keep doing them because I know that you guys enjoy them. But if there are any other videos that you want me to do, because obviously I will do a couple of different ones in between this one so that I'm not just doing story time after story time after story time. So if there's any other videos you want to see me do, then please do leave it in the comments below. I did give this little disclaimer at the beginning of part 1 to this story, but I'm just going to say again, I'm not making this video because I hate my ex-boyfriend or I want to slander him in any way. I'm just doing it to let you all know how to deal with heartbreak. Maybe don't do it the way that I did it. That it's completely normal to be heartbroken after you've broken up with someone, and you know, I'm kind of doing it more for educational purposes than I am anything else. I have nothing bad to say about Harry in real life. We're adults now, we were kids back then, and yeah. And I also don't mean any disrespect to anyone that I mention in this video, because I know that I'm coming across quite bitchy towards this Alice girl, and I mean, now if I saw her in the street I would say hello, because it's been 11 years, why would I still hold a grudge? I am a grudge holder, but not for that long, Jesus Christ. So even though I'm kind of talking about her negatively, I'm doing that because that's how I felt at the time. I'm kind of telling the story from how I felt back then, not how I feel now. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, your evening. I always say like enjoy the rest of your day at the end of my videos, but then I always end up posting in the evening, so it never makes sense. So yeah, whatever time of day it is when you're watching right now, I hope you enjoy the rest of it. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.